Life-saving medicines that aren't part of the healthcare basket have long been a serious and painful problem whose solution isn't expected shortly. Tens of thousands of Israeli patients have long been dealing with the frustration inherent to the fact that the drugs that would save their lives cost thousands, if not hundreds of thousands ILS monthly. We have recently been exposed to this phenomenon born of despair and constantly expanding. Israeli patients unable to afford to buy these drugs in Israel smuggle them from India. Yes, India turns out to be one of the world's generic drug manufacturers, and drugs that cost here tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands will cost you there a few thousands and even hundreds of ILS. How does this happen and why it is forbidden to import these drugs from India? And what happened to those who decided to violate the law to stay alive? Eric Weiss reports us on this.
Hi Ahim. I'm Arik. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Hi. Welcome. The disease progresses, albeit not at a fast pace, but it continues one way, that's to say, towards worseness. No withdrawal or self-healing are expected. I hope for the best. That's what I've left with.
Ahim Lifshitz has already suffered from this disease almost for 30 years. This northern farmer contracted hepatitis C, a severe liver disease, in the 80s in Lebanon. One of his legs was amputated due to a serious injury, and the virus reached him through one of the transfusions performed to him on his way to the Ramban hospital. During all this time, his chances for recovery were low, until the most unexpected person, Pamela Anderson.
They told me that I would die in 10 years.
But then 3 months ago, the incurable suddenly cured in a 12-week medical miracle.
12 weeks and gone. Yes.
Researchers saying the new medication could now become an approved treatment.
There's Harvoni, a revolutionary treatment for the most common type of chronic hepatitis.
A few years ago, 3 or 4 years, one could already hear about breakthrough medicines, almost always effective. In close to 100, 95, 98% of the cases. But the price is astronomical. The price is exorbitant. The average citizen can't afford it. I think that even more.
So, here is something that Lifshitz, just like millions of Western patients, found out not long ago. Unexpectedly, it is from India that he receives news that might change his life.
Yes, hello sir. We are calling from Israel.
I have hepatitis C, genotype 1.
Okay, so what we can do is that, you can come over to India, right? And we'll help you in getting consultation with the doctor, right? And we'll get you whatever medicines are required, and then you can go back.
Yeah.
And total package will cost you $5,000. That includes medicine, that includes hotel, as well as consultation with the doctor. All these 3 things.
Yes, you heard it right. $5,000 for a package that includes a hotel stay, meeting a doctor, and the medicine itself. If Lifshitz bought the drugs on his own in India, this would even cost him much less.
Basically, this is the whole story. This is how it looks. The treatment lasts 3 months. $94,500. Yes, I'll express it this way. Everybody speaks about Gilead's CEO, unfortunate Gaffe. At some stage, he was asked, how can you sell life-saving medicines for such a lot of money? And he answered, it's not everyone's privilege to drive a Ferrari. It caused a great outcry in the US. This is a complex and difficult issue. I also heard of people who requested loans and sold their properties, and withdrew savings and did many of this sort of things. So how can a drug that cost ILS 400,000 in Israel cost a few thousand ILS a 10-hour flight away?
India is one of the world's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers, partly due to the fact that its government refuses to accept the rules of the game customary in the pharmaceutical industry. Or, in other words, It allows local pharmaceutical companies to copy drugs, something that would have ended up anywhere in the Western world. As a lawsuit for patent infringement and penalties of millions of US dollars in India ended up as cheap drugs.
I am here in northwest part of Delhi, and you can see behind me a big hospital. Moreover, there are in this area a couple of pharmacies also. Here they are. We are going to check the rates of these generic medicines in these pharmacies.
This is Anjana Dalal that lives in New Delhi. This week, we handed her a list of shockingly expensive drugs which are not included in the subsidized Israeli health basket and asked her to find out for us their cost in India. The disparities simply unimaginable. For example, Afinitor for the treatment of cancer that cost in Israel ILS 19,000, cost in New Delhi ILS 1900. Revlimid for the treatment of myeloma that cost in Israel ILS 45,000, cost in India ILS 680. Harvoni, mentioned before, cost in Israel ILS 400,000, cost in India without mediator ILS 570. Take example this medicine called Esbret for the treatment of pulmonary fibrosis, whose cost before its addition to the healthcare basket was ILS 15,000, compared to Pirfenex from India that cost $100 US, not one extra dime. Its effect is exactly the same one.
My sister traveled to India on a trip and bought me medicine for 6 months. Sometime after that, another family member traveled to India and bought me medicine for other 6 months. After that, I met somebody who traveled as well, and he brought me medicine for 6 more months. I took advantage of anyone traveling. I had no choice. No, there was no hope. I couldn't cope with this any longer, and at a certain stage, I was unable to get a complete night's sleep. An incessant coughing of close to 20 hours a day. Now I feel better. It's undoubtedly illegal, but I didn't care. I wanted to live. I need the medicine, come what may, and God helped me. Actually, these last 3 years, there has been no adverse change. This means something.
G, a resident of southern Israel, knows that his life was saved thanks to the medicine from India. There's no way that he could ever import it legally, since the local law prohibits importing drugs that exist in the local market. It's a little strange that the local law protects pharmaceutical companies, but that's the way it is. On the other hand, he can fly and bring his medicine, but only enough for 2 months. Having no alternative, he simply relies on occasional travelers that smuggle the medicine for him. And he's not the only one who does so.
Subject him to a bronchoscopy, alright? Then the patients approached me. The patients found this medicine online. Then they addressed their request to pharmacies in India, where it is available, and got it. Very easily and cheaply. I mean, when such a dilemma really arises, for a patient who tells you, I either got the medicine even illegally, or I have no way to treat my condition, and that's how it ends for me. A bit problematic dilemma. You see, this is not my dilemma. It is the patient's dilemma, that's clear. And I won't prevent him for anything. Let him bring the medicine, buy it, take it. I won't prevent anyone to take a medicine that might help him, right?
But Professor Karmar's opinion is a dissenting one. Many doctors with whom we spoke expressed vehemently their opposition to any therapy using medicines from India. And the other side of the story is that India is not only one of the world's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers. India is also a major distributor of fake medicines in the world. Countless websites offer medicines from India for rock-bottom prices, but their origin is unknown. In some cases, the drugs turn out to contain just sugar. In other, their formulas include dangerous chemicals and the market is flooded. In fact, it was recently found out that a number of Indian hospitals treated their patients with fake medicines.
Many, I wouldn't say hundreds, but I'd say dozens asked me, What about India? My current recommendation to my patient is, look, since I can't guarantee the source of the drug, I can't guarantee that you are getting a real medication, so I can't recommend it. Do as you wish.
I contacted Azamazin and got the pills from them. After that, I went to the hospital to receive all of the prescriptions and visited the oncology department and asked them if they perhaps had Affinita. And so I got some more pills, and so I keep on collecting them just like a beggar. I get them from here and Friends for Health give me some. I contacted also them. I actually collect the drug from here and there. This was the dilemma rolls to the doorsteps of the patients.
S had a breast cancer that spread over the past year to all of her body. Although the medicine prescribed to her, Afinitor, is part of the healthcare basket, but she isn't eligible to it, meaning having to pay ILS 19,000 monthly for it, which of course she is unable to afford. In India, we found a generic version of this drug for ILS 1900. And now S must decide if she'll take a trip to India in search of pills that might save her life without knowing how to find out whether the medicine she'll find is a fake version and how to bring it home. And there's someone who claims that the world was driven to this impossible turmoil by the pharmaceutical companies themselves, whose drug prices have completely been unfounded these past years.
In cancer right now, any new drug that enters the marketplace is approximately between $12,000 to $15,000 per month.
And 20 years ago, how much did it
20 years ago, it may have been $2,000 to $3,000 per month. Yeah, the prices are made up.
They're made up.
Essentially, yeah. They're made up. All drugs cost all different amounts in all different countries. In America, because they don't negotiate for the prices, and the prices increase. What the aim of the industry is to try to get the drug approved in a certain place, and so they price it as high as they can, it seems to me, as high as they can in order for it to enter the system. So that's essentially how drugs have been priced, how much the market will bear.
So basically it's all business at the end of the day.
It's definitely business. The pharmaceutical industry have an extremely powerful lobby. And there's tremendous amounts of money spent on advertising.
Yes, your lives are in the hands of the pharmaceutical companies. Lately, the whole world has understood that this issue has gotten out of control.
The evidence shows that the company pursued a calculated scheme for pricing and marketing its hepatitis C drug based on one goal: maximizing revenue regardless of the human consequence.
Two US congressmen release a strongly criticizing investigation into the pricing of company that sells you a medicine for ILS 400,000 simply because it can do so. The bottom line of this investigation must echo around the world, and until this happens, India's question shall continue to have countless persons facing every day a dilemma almost impossible to live with. There is also genuine drugs that are manufactured in India because of all kind of reasons. Are their prices also almost nil? Their prices are almost nil. There are some drugs whose price in India is very low. For ILS 40,000, example, the drug to treat the hepatitis C being sold in India is the original one. But as stated, there are fake drugs. Pay attention, this market is insane. The crime organizations understood that commercializing a fake drug is much more profitable than dealing with a kg of cocaine. That's also why the market is flooded. We also see they're entering markets that you wouldn't believe. The Ministry of Health initiated an investigation just these last weeks. 3 patients who take fake drugs, apparently from India, and they received the drug from their insurance companies, meaning that they were supposed to be legitimate drugs. So their problem has only one solution: the healthcare basket, our healthcare basket, a promise from a long time ago, made by the Deputy Minister of Health, who's now the Minister of Health, right? to addition of these drugs to the basket, right? Then you see, 3 years ago, they decided to take the life-saving medicines out of the basket for equitability's sake. They made a mistake. Everyone understands this. Nowadays, Litzman is trying to undo that. From the supplementary insurance, from the HMOs, yes. And these days, they are trying to include them back again. That's the solution. There's no other one. Until then, people will continue to try to get these drugs. We'll only read the response of the Ministry of Health. It's only permitted to import drugs from authorized countries. The reaction of the Ministry of Health in accordance with the ordinance of the pharmacist and to ensure the quality of drugs entering the country. The Ministry of Health authorizes to import only from countries and authorities that have a recognized quality system known to us. The US, Canada, the EU, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland and Iceland. A medicine can be imported from India, provided that it is registered in one of the countries listed above and marketed in them. These conditions ensure that only authorized dealers import medicines to Israel and every importer is required to comply with them. This is the response released by the Ministry of Health.